Hello, I'm Georgia Raisman. I'm here doing Front Up with MarshaEgan8, a friend and colleague who is a nationally known business coach. She speaks locally, nationally, and internationally on topics of business development and personal development. On Island, Marsha has been very helpful with the Chamber of Commerce, running various lecture programs, and does my favorite program, Coaching at the Corner, on Mitchell's, upstairs at Mitchell's, every other Thursday. Do catch her there if you can. The next one is tomorrow, but there is one 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from that, and you'll have to check her website, MarshaEgan8.com, for the dates. Marsha's going to talk with us today about the various struggles that business owners on Island face. They're not the typical struggles that business owners elsewhere face. So why don't we start with that? What do you find business owners approach you about, or what do you see business owners having to deal with on Nantucket?
Well, there is a virtual plethora of issues that they deal with. But one of the biggest ones that I've noticed here, we moved here 8 years ago, and it isn't a surprise that there are cycles here. There's cyclicality to the population, to business, and to revenue streams and that kind of thing. And it is very difficult for any business to survive in that environment. And especially, it's difficult for businesses to survive without cycles like that. But the cycles here on Nantucket are extreme. And when we have island population in the winter between 10 and 20,000, and in August at 60,000 or more, there are pressures that happen to all businesses, and the business owner is the center point of that. One of the things that I find, it's very curious, because each year I see so much stress. As an example, for retail, restaurant, anything that is tourist related, somewhere around April or May there's a tremendous amount of stress because people haven't done their ads for the paper, or they haven't ordered this, or anything like that. And one of the challenges that I have worked with these business owners on is move it ahead. You can design your ads in January if you want.
Right.
And so if there's anything that you can push back or back in your calendar, do it, because you actually have some downtime where you can be creative. Right. And there's something about people getting here and waiting to get in the mode to be thinking about what they need for their business. The reality is, when all those tourists show up, there are going to be issues they have to deal with that are not things that they could have done earlier.
In January, right.
Right.
So use January to plan for May rather than waiting until April to plan for May.
And it's kind of a time management. I work with just about every one of my clients on time management issues, and time management isn't really time management, it's priority management. Mm-hmm. And so what are your priorities? And a lot of times in any business, for any person who manages anything or anyone, or even just themselves, they wait to the last minute on a number of things. And if you can, the point is, you don't know what crisis is going to happen, and you need to leave space for it. And there are a lot of people who don't do that.
And the way you can leave space for it is by taking the things that you know you will need to do and doing them earlier.
Yes, just try to move them ahead in your schedule.
Yeah.
And I can't stand here and say that I'm like the queen of being able to move ahead, because I've been guilty of those kinds of things too. But when you're working with business clients who want to succeed, you know they need space for the crisis that's going to happen.
Right. And in addition to cyclicality, and the issue this year has been the availability of help, hasn't it?
Yeah. And that is a 5-pronged approach, or maybe 25-pronged approach. Yeah. But being able to, one of the things I've seen with successful businesses here is having people come back. And the way you handle your summer help, and the way you treat them, and the way they treat you, can actually, turnover is very hard on any business. And the more you can minimize turnover, the more successful you can be. And providing housing is becoming more of almost a have-to for many businesses, although it's very, very hard, but we're seeing more and more of a trend there.
It must be very hard for small businesses. You own a shop on Main Street and that's your shop. You don't have housing for 2 or 3 people that you might need in the season.
That's exactly
Unless
right.
you can put them up in your own house or basement or guest cottage.
Well,
and how many people can do that?
And you see that happening. You see that happening. It's very, very difficult. I don't know that I can give you an answer to the whole thing, but there are people who live on this island who may be available, and seeking those people out can be part of the solution.
Well, the other thing is that people start businesses and they don't have experience in that or any business. So how do you help coach people who are really new at all of this?
Boy, Georgie, I don't know how long this interview is, but in the few minutes...
Next 3 hours, you can tell me.
In the next few minutes, I guess the answer that I would give to you there is, there are a lot of people who get into business and they're very good at the task. And they, whatever the task might be, whether it's selling real estate or buying retail items, what gets to be one of the biggest challenges is managing the people. And what I like to say is a successful business is like a railroad tracks, because you have 2 tracks. One is the task and one is the people. And you have to be moving down that path equally. Some people are really great at the people side of business, but they don't watch their numbers, and so they can get in trouble that way. But more than that, when we see people starting businesses here, they've never managed people before. They've never had to give feedback when someone does something incorrectly. And they've never had to motivate people. They've just motivated themselves. Because as you said earlier, some of these businesses are only 3 or 4 person businesses. But as any business grows, you're going to have more and more and more people issues. So the ability to relate to people, to be able to motivate them, and to give feedback, and that's one of the most difficult things to do, is key to being able to run a really successful business.
Well, I think through the coaching at the corner, I hear you addressing a lot of these issues, and I hear you, and I know that participants there are often some of our small business owners. So I'm hoping that through that and your emails, newsletters, and your website, you're able to get these messages out more widely, because I think you're right. We do see people who are passionate about their business, but those other 2 elements, both the finance and the people management, are skills that, who knew you were going to need when you started this.
And they're all skills that can be learned, Georgia.
Well, that's good to know, too, because people often think, oh, I'm a wonderful, tile maker or jewelry maker or artist, but I don't know how to handle these people who come in and run my store. And
actually, one of the most popular ways to deal with a performance issue, let's just say people are coming in to work late. It's that simple. It happens lots of times. Their way of handling it is to ignore it and hope it goes away. And ignoring it is the worst thing that you can do. And what you want to do is actually develop skills on how to very nicely, caringly, and specifically work with these people to tell them.
I remember you were talking about this at one point. So what would be the first conversation you would have with somebody who is perpetually late to work and has a very insouciant attitude towards it?
Insouciant. Whoa, that's a big word.
That's a big word. That's a 10-point word.
Well, the advice, the way to go about giving, and I hate the word constructive criticism because it still has the word criticism in it. Giving feedback is to explain what the issue is and to give evidence. And sometimes it's one thing that the person did that was incorrect, but if there is a pattern, if people have been late for work 5 times in the last 2 weeks, you don't address the most recent lateness, you address the pattern. And what you do is you say, Georgia, I've noticed you were late for work 10 minutes last week on Tuesday. On Wednesday you were late 5 minutes. And you outline specifically, so they can't really argue with you about what's going on. And
You can't say it was my cat on Tuesday.
Right.
Because you've got this whole pattern.
Well, it could be the cat on Tuesday and it could be the car on Wednesday, but
Right.
there seems to be some pattern that we want to address.
Right.
And it's not like you want to make them feel bad. You just want to let them know that you've been watching. And then you basically state, our culture here is that we're here and ready to take care of our business when we open the door.
So you make it neutral.
You make it neutral and you say, what I want for you is for you to be able to be here 10 minutes prior to whatever. And then you ask them, is there something that you need to do more or less of to make sure that you're coming here? And what you've done is you've established the standard and you've let them know that they aren't meeting the standard, but then you put the onus on them to fix it. I actually, in my corporate life, I was in corporate America for 25 years. In my corporate life, I actually had that situation, and the person said to me, well, Marsha, could you call me in the morning to wake me up? And I said, no, this is something you need to work on, and if I can give you some ideas, I'm happy to help you with that. But accountability is really important when you're trying to get people to move in a certain direction, and motivating them. And the next day when they're there, 10 minutes early, when you notice it and say, Georgia, thank you for being here 10 minutes early, I noticed it.
So it takes a lot of effort to do that. Well, tell me I mean, it sounds like you had a very interesting life before you got here, and that built up to what you're now doing. So what is your background before you came to Nantucket
Oh my God.
full-time?
Well, my background is that I got out of college, did not know what I wanted to do, and I was at that stage where people were just starting to bring women into the workforce. I know I don't look that way, but I was, and banks and insurance companies were the two who were hiring women. And I started as a management trainee with a big insurance company, and I spent about 25 years moving up the ladder there. You learn a lot of things about interplay among people, power, and that kind of thing. And so the insurance business was very good to me, but I have been out of it now since 2005 and working on my own passion, which is helping people achieve their own goals and setting goals, achieving the success that they want, and enjoying doing it.
Well, it must be very fulfilling to do that. I mean, I know personally I have really benefited from the advice that you've given, both at the coaching at the corner and at the peer advisory group that you ran through the Chamber of Commerce. I think it's wonderful that we're lucky here on Nantucket to have those skills that you're applying here. And now that you've got a website, people can get those skills wherever they are.
Exactly. I really enjoy doing it. It is a life passion, and it fuels me to work with people to help them fuel themselves.
Well, I hope you feel gratified, because I think your ripples in the community are really, really being felt in a very quiet and helpful way, and that we're fortunate to have them.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming, sweetie. Nice to have you.